It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we're talking Glenn's performance in the Oscar-nominated indie drama 4 Good Days.
Time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today is one of the true greats. You have heard her on 2 previous episodes of The World According to Glenn discussing Dangerous Liaisons and Season 1 of Damages. She's back now for a project of equal importance in Glenn's career, editor at Awards Watch and co-host of the Oscar Wilde podcast. I have had way more than 4 good days podcasting with her. It's Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me back. I am so excited to visit this part of Glenn's career. So different from Dangerous Liaisons and The Brilliance of Damages, but I think we will still have just as much fun, just in a different way.
I think so. Yes. We're almost caught up to where she is now at her career. So It's wild how time has flown really since that first episode. But before we talk about Glenn in 4 Good Days, you, of course, told me many times you've told me your relationship to Glenn Close, so we don't need to recap on that. But you also, on your second episode, gave me your casting idea for a future Glenn role, which I don't know if you remember, but to remind the class, it was essentially her version of a Tar or a There Will Be Blood. As you said, like dark, nasty people doing what they do best kind of thing. This is not a want, but a need for me. So love that. You also mentioned her as the headmistress of an adaptation of Fox by Joyce Carol Oates. Cannot wait to read that to see if that tracks.
All I can see for her. So many good options, really. Whenever I'm reading a new book or this is so sad, but you'll understand. Watching anything, I'm like, what would Glenn Close do in this? What would she do with this role?
I think of it whenever I read any book, really. Yeah. How can Glenn be retrofit into this story?
Yes.
But yes, now I'll ask you an alternate question here, which I'm sure you had fun with, which is that if you can recast Glenn in any Oscar-nominated Best Actress role, what would it be and why?
Okay, so I loved what our dear Andrew Carden did on your episode of The Wife, which was so much fun. Loved listening to that. And I've decided to do something similar and pick a nominee from each decade. So we'll go through those. Wow. I can't wait for you to hear these. I had so much fun doing this. Yes. And I have semi-deranged reasons, really, for all of them. For the sake of time, I won't, monologue too much, but I will share. So for the 20s, I really Andrew and I have the same idea. It's Gloria Swanson, Sadie Thompson. I didn't want to put her in Sunset Boulevard, so this just felt like the right Gloria Swanson role and place for her.
Yep.
When we get into the 30s, I wanted to honor our 1937 episode. I think she would be great in Stella Dallas in the Barbara Stanwyck role. I think she can, we've talked a lot about Glenn's range, but I think she could nail those heartbreaking moments, the moments when she embarrasses herself around her daughter too, just the entire journey of that character. I could really see Glenn embodying. And I should have said this at the beginning, but all of these actresses that I've picked, for the most part, it's not like I want to kick them out of these roles. I think they're all wonderful. Right. That I've picked, but I just want to see what Glenn would do in an alternate universe, in an alternate timeline here.
Yeah, especially with that ending. Oof.
Yes. Oh, her standing at the fence, looking in the window. Oof, brutal. Would love it so much. In the 40s, I think you'll really love this one. I went Mildred Pierce, Joan Crawford. I think
Perfect.
that this would be really good for Glenn. And you're thinking also about the Todd Haynes miniseries. I feel like I want her to work with him also. And
you and me both.
I wanted to spare you, and I didn't give her a Greer role. I thought about it.
Okay.
And I was like, we're just not gonna go there. We're just gonna let the Greer roles be, and you won't have to watch any of those movies ever again, even if they star Glenn Close. So
exactly,
no Greer roles here. Although I did, I had to. Although I did like Andrew's pick of Mrs. Parkington. That was very fun.
I like how he said that was the obvious choice.
I know. I was like, all right.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. Yeah.
I was like, am I going to give you like Madame Curie or Blossoms in the Dust? No, we're not going to do that to Glenn or to
you. Yeah. No comment.
No comment. For the 1950s, I went with Katharine Hepburn in Summertime. I feel like this would be really fun for Glenn. Like, I could totally see her in this role as this character, going on this summer adventure in Venice. I want that for her. I want that kind of summertime romance. And
yeah, she could do that now.
Yeah,
honestly,
she could. I think it would be a great fit for her. Yeah. In the 60s, I couldn't decide. So we're going with two. We really are.
Okay.
And I hope that you enjoy both of these. But I want to see her in The Lion in Winter.
Well, she did The Lion in Winter, so there you go.
Yes, and I think that it would be, in this period, too, just, putting her there, I think it would be so great and fun. Mm-hmm. And then I also picked Auntie Mame.
Oh, my. Okay.
Because I think...
Well, that's perfect.
I also just was thinking about Roz Russell in this role and just, her costumes, and I feel like Glenn could absolutely nail this. And I wanted to go again into her. That's why I did The Lion in Winter too, the theatrical part of her for sure with these two. Yeah. 1970s. This one's obvious. Faye Dunaway and Network. I think that I feel like Glenn could nail Diana and just all of her power, those monologues, everything that she does so well there. I feel like I just want to see that so badly. 1980s. Terms of Endearment, the Shirley MacLaine role. Oh. And I thought of that with Four Good Days. Bit
comes up here.
Yeah. So this was the first one I really thought of because it came to me when I was watching Four Good Days, which we'll talk about why. But specifically the Give My Daughter the Shot scene. Yes. I could see Glenn nailing.
Did you think about who her daughter would be? Who's her Deborah Winger?
I think it's Rose Byrne.
Rosie.
Yeah, Rosie.
Rose.
Let's do a little Damages reunion.
I love that.
Yeah. 1990s, I think this one will just make you laugh. It's a little cheeky nod to Oscar history maybe, but let's give her The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
So Jodie keeps her Oscar for The Accused in that universe. She doesn't, the history is wrong there, but then Glenn comes in and she has The Silence of the Lambs. I think she could really, she is actually, it's surprising that she wasn't really in the conversation for The Silence of the Lambs, actually. Like, I could see her just even in the opening montage, the training montage. Like, you can imagine that, her, like, confronting Buffalo Bill at the end. Like, all of that just makes so much sense for her as an actress.
I have never even thought about that, weirdly enough, of her being in that. But, yeah, that fits perfectly.
I think so. 2000s, Notes on a Scandal.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, just with Kate, too.
Want it. Yeah, with Kate. Yes. I think she could really just nail it. You're not young. Yep. All of it. The internal.
You're not young.
Just all of that that's sitting with her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's never been afraid to play gay. So,
yeah.
Easily, her bread and butter.
Okay, are you ready for the 2010s?
I don't know. The way you said it, I don't know.
I want to hear Glenn Close do the cool girl monologue. Let's give her Gone Girl.
Wow.
Let's make her Amy Dunn. Michael Douglas can be Nick. We can do it. Adrian Lyne can direct.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it is You could say Gone Girl was a bit of a fatal attraction for its time.
A bit, right? It feels like that. But I think Glenn could nail that kind of the icy, unknowable blonde.
Yes, but also fitting in with society at the same time, but still having that darkness underneath,
Yeah, exactly. The darkness underneath is what it's all about. And then for the 2020s, it's still Tar. It's like I still want Glenn Close to be Lydia Tar. Like I want to see what that looks like, and she needs her Tar type of role. So those are my answers.
Beautiful work. Very proud. Well done.
Thanks so much. I had so much fun doing it.
Yes, I'm sure you did, honestly. Yeah. Wow. I mean, that just, not to glaze her too much on a specific Glenn Close podcast, but it does speak to her versatility, I think, because that's a lot of different types of roles that you cast her in, but she still would, I think, fit into just about all of those without much.
Anti-May Mantar.
Yes. When will your faves? Anyway, yes, love that. Now it's time to get into 4 Good Days. Here we go. So this began with an article that was published in the Washington Post by Eli Saslow that was called How's Amanda? A Story of Truth, Lies, and an American Addiction, which is about Amanda Wendler, who struggled with heroin addiction for many years, and about her long-suffering mother, Libby. And it details Amanda's difficulties in getting clean and also the toll it took on Libby. So then in comes Rodrigo Garcia, Glenn's longtime collaborator, who I've had so much fun talking about his movies with guests about his previous films, like Things You Could Tell Just by Looking at Her, 9 Lives, and of course Albert Nobbs. This is now their 4th team up. And so Rodrigo said for why he wanted to do this, that he read this article, and that what attracted me was this particular mother and daughter and how specifically they were portrayed and how tired they were of each other from the beginning. I thought this idea of this pressure cooker in the house trying to stay clean and redebating all their arguments and bitterness was interesting. And Rodrigo said that Glenn came to mind pretty quickly to play the mother figure here. So Glenn said that the role spoke to her for 2 reasons. Number 1, she said, a mother locks her own child out of the house. What on earth would bring that on? And then secondly, Deb is the kind of woman that you'd see at a McDonald's or somewhere, and you never would think twice about what her story is. I think what I loved about this movie is it's a story of someone who might go absolutely unnoticed, but what she is dealing with on a daily basis is something that thousands of people are dealing with on a daily basis. I thought to make her human and to show the story and to hopefully engender some empathy about what's going on in this country, I thought that was an important thing to do. So that's her take on it. She was also very active at this time with her charity work through Bring Change to Mind, her organization that's dedicated to destigmatizing mental illness. And Glenn has also gone through this journey with her own sister having substance abuse issues. So it was a very important story to her. And Mila Kunis was cast as the daughter character. And their character names were changed from the real-life women, with Libby here going by Deb and Amanda becoming Molly. I'm not entirely sure why they changed it, but there you go. 4 Good Days follows Molly, who we're introduced to her as battling severe heroin addiction. She's been through detox 14 times in the past and is now looking to try again and going sober. And she shows up on the doorstep of her mother, Deb, who really doesn't want to engage with her anymore, only wanting to speak to her when she's sober. But Deb eventually takes her in, and Molly goes through the detox process again, and this time she gets the opportunity to be treated with an opioid antagonist that would reduce cravings and the high of the drug, but she has to go sober for 4 days in order to get her first shot. And the film is about the struggle for both Molly and Deb in trying to make sure Molly is resisting temptation and stays sober, with Deb trying to trust her daughter, but still being very cautious with every move she makes. And though Deb starts to feel some hope that Molly is really going to do it this time, Molly does make a decision that ultimately threatens that, leading to some major conflict. So, with all that said, Sophia, 4 Good Days. Tell me your relationship to this movie then and now, whether you have any thoughts on Rodrigo Garcia, as I know you've been following along and watching specifically those movies of his. I know you haven't watched every Glenn movie as I've been on this journey, but you have, I believe, watched all of them or at least their collaborations. But yes, your thoughts on that and your thoughts on Glenn's performance here.
Yeah, so it's so funny because Rodrigo Garcia is one of my top 2 in my most watched directors lists on Letterboxd. Just learned
Congratulations.
That. After 4 good days, I have watched all 4 of their collaborations this year. And I actually think that helped me understand my issues with this movie a little bit more, because I think it falls into, some of the similar traps that you've discussed on all of those episodes. I think that with 4 Good Days, so I first watched this because Diane Warren is nominated for her original song here, Somehow You Do, which, sung by Reba McEntire, and being the Oscar completionist that I am, every year.
The same sickness as me.
The same sickness. Every year when Diane Warren is nominated, I have to watch a film I haven't heard of or haven't had on my radar or made a priority. And this was one of those. And it was funny going back to my Letterboxd review at the time. I had given the movie 2 stars and just said, so Glenn is just great in everything. So this is, I think, something that you've talked about a lot on your show so far, which is, sometimes the material isn't great, but Glenn still manages to shine and really deliver something that isn't there on paper that really, I think, is deserving of a stronger project, whether that's better writing, better direction. And I think, thinking about her personal connections to this issue, and then also when you view this with Hillbilly Elegy too, not to bring that up again, it's like, I want her to do a Mike Leigh film, or to work with a director who can really want to look at human issues and center the people, not make something that is just focusing on the stereotypes, which is unfortunately what 4 Good Days is for me. However, in watching it again, I found that Glenn's performance still holds up. I feel the same way that I did about it when I watched it originally, which is that I think she is bringing so much depth to a character that is written in a very simplistic way, despite it being on this article and based on real people. This movie feels like it is just perpetuating a lot of stereotypes around addiction. But anytime that Glenn is on screen, I feel that Deb is a real person and that she is at every turn dealing with so many emotions that she is also trying to hide in so many scenes. She's trying to be really strong, but she's also, I think, really angry about a lot that has happened. And she is so good at communicating that. So I think it's worth watching just as an entry in her filmography, because I think she actually nails that connection to, a parent or a family member struggling with someone with addiction. But then all of the rest of it, we can talk about maybe why that doesn't work so well.
Yeah. Shame about the rest of it. Yeah, I'd agree. But yeah, this is another one for me where I remember the casting announcement a few months after the Oscars that took place in 2019, those notorious Oscars.
Yes.
And it was around the same time of that Hillbilly Elegy announcement that was released. And I was like, wow, okay, Glenn is really getting these huge opportunities and this big boost in visibility and landing some plum roles, leading roles too, or at least prominent in the story roles in the case of Hillbilly Elegy, which had been kind of missing from her filmography through a lot of the 2010s. And I was excited, and it felt like strong material, relevant material. And she is working with a director who she obviously had a great relationship with and who got her an Oscar nomination. So all signs were pointing in a positive direction for me with this. And then I saw the first trailer and saw Glenn's wig. And
the wig.
Yes, I'm surprised you didn't bring that up, but it's
it'll come up.
It's a choice, yes. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll still give it the benefit of the doubt, but something felt a little off, I'll say.
Yeah.
And I saw the early reviews about it being kind of a standard drug addiction story, and the reviews for Glenn's performance and Mila's performance were kind of all over the place, so I really didn't know what to think. I tried to go in with an open mind, and what I got was indeed a very standard drug addiction, I would argue at times melodrama, but in derogatory, but because that can be a good thing. But
you have to clarify with us, too.
I know, it's true. We love our older melodramas, but in this case, but still elevated by a very good performance from Glenn. And Mila, I think, makes sense on paper for her casting here, but does come up short at times, and I hate to say it, there are a few moments where it does feel like she is kind of acting in an after-school special about the dangers of drug addiction.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, but, I think she's not bad, but I don't know if it fully comes together for me as a performance. But yes, I also was looking back at my previous Letterboxd review, and I had mentioned that they have surprisingly strong chemistry, which I did kind of feel on this watch too, that they make sense as mother and daughter just in how they interact with each other, even if I don't quite see the family resemblance. Not to quote Michelle Visage in those Drag Race makeover challenges, but not seeing the family resemblance. I don't see how these two are related biologically per se. To me, she feels like more of like maybe an adopted daughter of Glenn's or like a foster daughter, but yes, just beyond that, they do have this kind of shorthand, I think, and they share kind of like this bluntness and almost like this quick temper that does sort of make me believe them and their history of fighting and making up and losing trust and winning back trust and all of that. And I think Mila does have that scrappy quality, while Glenn has more of a put together quality that feels like, oh, maybe Molly kind of rebelled against that in her youth, perhaps. But I do think ultimately the problems with the movie stem from the directorial choices. I feel like Rodrigo maybe should have let some of his scenes breathe a bit and not have to kind of over egg every emotional scene with a big melodramatic score, which I find intrusive here. It almost feels like he's scared of like the audience being scared off by the material being kind of raw, and that he's trying to make it a little more palatable for the audience. And I don't know. I don't think the story needs that kind of sheen to it for me. And so even just on a directorial level, I do struggle to feel like, I don't know if Rodrigo is necessarily like putting me in the minds of these characters per se. Like, it's very dialogue heavy, and there are a lot of very frank conversations that are varying levels of effectiveness, but as you might say in like an English class, it's a lot of telling and not showing. That's kind of how I felt watching this again.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the score is so overbearing and prominent. Like, I wished that I could turn it off while I was watching this, which obviously you can't do. But that to me is what made it feel like Hallmark or Lifetime, or trying to, just it's not really in service of the performances either. And I agree with you on Mila Kunis. I feel that and we'll talk about this as we go through the movie, but I think they do have good chemistry, but I unfortunately feel like she just can't really hold her own as well with Glenn, which is understandable, but it also makes the film falter in places. And what I was alluding to earlier with Rodrigo is that in all of his movies, but especially in the anthologies, like 9 Lives and Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her. That's right. Yeah.
Good job. Yes.
Thank you.
I feel like you had to read that.
I did have to go to my notes for a second.
Yes.
Those, you just have, it's almost like when he is talking about the lives of women, he's like, I have to get this right. I have to make sure this is emotional, and it's this like truth-telling thing. Yeah. And I just feel like he just doesn't let the actors communicate that. It's exactly like you said. It's telling, not showing. And that is a Rodrigo Garcia specialty, unfortunately.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do just go back to the quote from Things You Can Tell, where he has a character say that only a fool would speculate about the life of a woman.
Mm-hmm. And Rodrigo might be the fool here.
Unfortunately, sometimes we do have to look in the mirror a bit and repeat this back to ourselves and be yes,
we do.
But yes, I do have to say, though, it is wild to me that Glenn stars here in films back to back in which she is playing a mother whose daughter is struggling with drug addiction.
Yes.
And both of which also feature scenes where the daughter character needs a loved one to pee in a cup to have her pass a urine test because they've taken drugs recently.
I forgot about this from Hillbilly Elegy because I obviously, I have not rewatched that since it's Oscar year.
Sure.
But when the moment in this, when Molly says, "I need your pee," I thought, oh my God, wait, Glenn had to do this in Hillbilly Elegy too?
Yeah.
What is going on? Need a special letterbox list for this.
I guess so. Well, it's only these two, but we'll see.
It's fine.
I don't know if something's going to happen in La Bola Negra or Hunger Games that will require that, but
TBD, yeah.
TBD, yes. But just again, it's like when you're doing a podcast like this and watching her films in such quick succession, you see these patterns because it's this weird little niche too, not just these two, but like when you look back on Lowdown from 2014, that's a very similar role where she is dealing with a child who has this debilitating addiction. And to some degree, she also has this kind of a role, like a grandmother type of thing, dealing with a difficult relationship with her daughter in The Great Gilly Hopkins, too.
Oh, yes.
You know?
I thought about that a little bit here.
Yeah.
And just The Great Gilly Hopkins.
Yes.
What a journey. Truly a brat of a child.
Yes.
Which connects a little bit here too. She really does. Mm-hmm. But in both situations, I have to say, I mean, The Great Gilly Hopkins, I kept thinking, like, I would just let Glenn adopt me. It's very similar to like when I watch like Baby Boom and I just want Diane Keaton to adopt me. But I felt that here a little bit too. I was like, she just has this like nurturing presence. Mm-hmm. Like even here, I think it's a little bit more complicated, obviously, with her own daughter, but I guess she is giving these massages or just when she's with her grandkids. She just communicates this kind of warmth, and it's a great presence that she has about her.
Yeah, she really does. But it's interesting too, though, that like there is sometimes that fraught dynamic in the relationship with specifically her child. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know if anyone's asked her about this pattern, but like she does fulfill this role very well of like a older woman trying to hold it together and perhaps feeling a bit regretful of her past and how her actions may have led to her kids, you know, to going down this wrong path, but not necessarily just blaming herself. But like even within that archetype, she does really carve out, I think, an entirely different character in each of the films, really, that I listed there. Like here, she is this massage therapist who like works at a casino, I think. Like it's very specific, but it's like everything is steady whenever Molly isn't around.
Yeah.
But we see in these little flashes that she's a bit ill-tempered and a bit impatient and blunt and to the point, and she has a bit of a tough love approach. Even the way she dresses, I think, tells a story of who this woman is, you know, and that she can blend in well with the crowd and seems well adjusted and like her life is perfectly fine. But maybe that all of that is just masking what's really going on, you know?
Yeah, I think so. It's what's going on underneath. And I feel like being introduced to her, the first shot of her in this movie, you see her almost from profile, right? She's getting the glass of wine in her kitchen. You see that wig, which is a very particular type of hairstyle. We feel like we know this woman, especially the hair, her makeup, how she dresses. She wears a lot of those like big cardigans or just like a very, I don't know, kind of cozy look to her, but also like down to business. Like she's not a fancy woman, right?
Right.
She's just, and I think you feel that too in the way that her home is set up. But she also, I think, has a really interesting relationship with her husband, because she, I think, also is taking a lot out on him, and she doesn't really know how to communicate this with him. And I think that is actually where some of her most interesting work comes in. But yeah, I think compared to those other roles that we were talking about, I think you feel that she is someone who has a lot of regrets through her life, but she also, as she discusses later, there are certain things where she's like, I didn't have regrets in doing this and in thinking of myself and saving myself from my earlier marriage.
That is very true. Yeah, she does very quickly develop. You can absolutely sense who this kind of woman is from that first scene, where she's just kind of like, I can't do this with you again, Molly. And like, next time I see you, you need to be clean and sober. Like, and it's like that she's heard this speech from Molly for 10 years about like wanting to go back to school and get a job and get her kids back. And she just needs this one more chance. But the way Deb dismisses her too, I think it's sort of like you can sense what a burden this has been for her. And it just gets to a point where she's done all that she can do. And Molly is an adult. She has to kind of be responsible to some degree for her choices. Yep. And so I think Glenn just has that naturally, like that no nonsense sort of sterness that she can really turn that on really well. That makes her casting at least make sense here, I would say.
Yeah. I think so too. And, you know, you talking about that first interaction that she has with Molly, I will give Rodrigo a little bit of credit for how long he keeps the camera on Glenn in this moment. I think that's actually really important. I wish that it was actually on her the full time, that full scene after we see Molly, instead of going back and forth, because I think you just see so much really in her eyes. She has to be really firm with her. She's also shocked by her daughter showing up again, her appearance, the way that her teeth look too, when she says, like, why are you covering your mouth? There are certain things I think that she's really great at communicating about a lifelong relationship with her daughter and where it's gone and how she can't trust her anymore. But then the moment when she shuts the door. So we've had tears welling in her eyes throughout this conversation. But when she shuts the door, there is this moment of release. It's like, okay, now I can really let this out. I don't have to perform something for my daughter to be really strong and firm in the situation. And then her husband makes this comment about her, and she says, don't talk about her like that. She's not a bomb. Yes. And so she's still like defending her, and you can tell that she still loves her, but she's really, really struggling with her coming back, which I think, again, that is Glenn making the most of, yes, that line can feel like very overdone, clunky. Yeah. But she sells it. You believe that relationship that she has with her and why she's struggling so much.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if we mentioned that the husband is played by Stephen Root.
Yes.
The great Stephen Root. Yes. But a fascinating husband to add to her many husbands she's had on screen, Stephen Root. But they oddly work together, I think, even though I think it's very clear that she is like the alpha in this relationship. But the reason she says that, like, don't talk about her that way, she's not a bomb, is because he's like, if you let her in, she's going to blow up your life. And I think what she's kind of communicating in this moment is being like sort of like, I can talk about my daughter that way, but you can't, sort of thing, because he is not Molly's father. This is Deb's newer husband. And I think that is also a very real thing, that sort of protectiveness and the feeling that she knows what's best for her daughter and is giving her that tough love. But she's also very sensitive to this situation, and she maybe feels like her husband hasn't been there for all those years where she's had to do all of this with her. So that there is that feeling of like, even though she's so close to her husband, it's also like, well, you can't really speak to this situation because you haven't been there. That is a very real thing, at least, that they tap into.
I think so. And you see that through quite a few of their scenes when they're in bed together. Stephen Root is always sleeping in this movie. Like, he's sleeping a lot, and she is wide awake at night. Oh, yeah. Like, she is just laying there thinking. And going to that line that we were talking about, that was, you know, one of those things that's really like keeping her up thinking about this, is when she's just like, why did you say that she's going to affect like my life? Like, she's going to blow up my life. This is our life. And I think, yeah, she's tapping into something that's really specific there. And, you know, when she knows that Molly she doesn't let her back in the house. She's lingering around. She knows she's lingering. I think that scene is really heartbreaking when she goes to the kitchen and sees her outside, and she's just making sure she knows where she is almost. And she's, you know, looking out the window, but she doesn't want Molly to see that she is looking out at her. And then she falls asleep in the kitchen because she's right outside. I think that is just a really sad scene. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where I was feeling like rewatching it. I was like, okay, so there's a little more complexity and nuance to this story than I remember there being. Of feeling like there's that huge mix of emotions for Deb. Definitely. Of just like, she just doesn't really know what to do, but her maternal instincts do just kick in ultimately. No matter what Molly has screwed up time and time again, she's still going to be there. But
yeah, motherhood has many trials.
It sure does. It really, really does. But ultimately, Deb does take Molly to the detox center, and that's where we get this revelation that she's been through this 14 times in the past. And it's this kind of startling moment, even for the receptionist, to be like, oof, okay. Like, you know the drill. All right. Yeah. You know, and it kind of contextualizes why Deb has kind of reached that breaking point of feeling like she maybe does just need to cut her off. Another illuminating scene, too, is when they go to the doctor's office and Deb just like lays it all out for this doctor and is like, I wrote this whole little monologue down where she's like, when she was 17, she sprained her knee water skiing and walked out with a prescription for 75 oxy and never a refill denied. And it's just this, you know, that bitter tone in Glenn's voice. It's being like, you know, this woman must hate the Sackler family. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah.
And this whole opioid epidemic and, you know, what these careless doctors have done to this country, really, and to her daughter. But also in that same scene, there's this interesting exchange where like the doctor is explaining to them that, oh, there's this opioid antagonist she can take to help her fight this addiction. And Molly asks if it's safe. And Deb just gives her this look like she truly can't believe what just came out of her daughter's mouth. And just goes off where she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you spent 10 years shooting up heroin laced with, what, rat poison and baby powder and God knows what else. And now all of a sudden your body's a temple. Is it fucking safe?
That is great. Like, that is that's Glenn's acting, that style that I love. And I think you really, it's why I think it's a shame that the movie, you know, isn't, you know, more well written or well directed, because it's clearly interested in multiple issues connected to the opioid crisis. This whole backstory of, you know, the fact that she like was injured and that's how she got it. I mean, that is so common. That is such a common thing, right? And so I think that it's an important detail to bring up, but sometimes it does just feel like the story, they're just checking these boxes just in the way that the information is revealed. But yeah, I think those scenes where Deb is dropping, I keep calling her Glenn. I feel like you probably deal with this every single episode, but where
she's always Glenn.
She's always there. When Deb is dropping Molly off at detox or when they're at the appointment, you can sense again that when she's around Molly, she has to be a little bit, you know, like she has to be the one who is attentive to those details, and she makes sure that she knows what's going on. Like, this is how the detox works. I'm dropping you off. This is how, like, you have a chance. Like, let's try this shot. And I think there's also something that we see there that is really important, which is that, like, she is so angry at the systems and the people who have done this to her daughter. Like, when she says, you all put her here. It started here in a doctor's office. When she sees the dealer outside of the detox center, And she's like, what did she say? Like, you should be fucking shot or something like that.
Love it.
Yeah, love it. But I think you really do feel that anger from her.
Yeah. But I think another thing, though, that it made me think of is I appreciate that Deb is not depicted as just kind of the silent, suffering mother type.
Yes.
Like a Greer Garson type, you could say, you know? Or, I don't know, even like a Anne Bancroft in The Miracle Worker kind of thing, where there's that kind of like, there is that tough love, but there's also sort of this valiant, sort of heroic element to it there.
Yeah.
Because like Deb is a kind of a flawed person, and she is an impatient person, as we'll come to understand too with what she did in the past. And she does just have that quality that's just like exhausted and isn't able to always contain her frustration. So she does maybe say the wrong thing sometimes, and sometimes she does even enable her daughter. Yep. So yeah, I like that she is not just like the suffering saint helping out her flawed daughter, you know, that sort of very cliche dynamic.
Yeah, I like that too. It makes her feel much more like a real person, and it makes this not feel like one of those, I think, just like Oscar vehicles of this valiant, brave mother who's just like silently suffering and putting it all out on the line for her daughter's recovery. You feel like this is a person who's been through all 14 times before, right? And that is, I think, credit to Rodrigo Garcia there, but especially I think to Glenn for never really letting herself like be afraid of digging into those complex women.
Oh yeah. And so we ultimately do get the background on this incident that happened in their past with Deb kind of having, you know, a bit of a lost daughter situation, you could say, where she, you know, left their home when Molly was a kid because she just couldn't take the stress of being with her husband anymore and how awful he was. And so she just, I guess, left for 2 years, I believe she says, and finally came back. And the way it comes up is a little bit like, well, I'm sure they've had this discussion before. This kind of just feels like it's for the audience. But, you know, I think Molly even says, like, I've heard this story before. But it is very illuminating to show that, you know, there may still be a little bit of guilt in a very similar way that is true in Hillbilly Elegy, oddly enough. A feeling of, like, did I give my daughter the right childhood, or did I make mistakes, and like how much responsibility should I bear in all of this? And that's what's maybe informing why she does quote unquote enable her daughter at times, is that still feeling that guilt of that, even though she doesn't fully regret it. You know, it's again a very complex situation.
I think it's really complex, and I do think that part of the reason why she's, you know, not able to abandon her daughter and she lets her stay there for the rest of that time is like, she has that monologue where she's talking about where she, you know, Molly wakes up and she's having a hard time sleeping, she's going through withdrawal, and she's like, did I really sell your wedding rings? Like, did that really happen? And I think Glenn has, like, she delivers this monologue in a really beautiful way, and she's like, no, it's another you, it's not the real you. And then she tells that story about leaving her dad and opening that pottery painting store in the mall. I can envision exactly what this looks like, by the way.
Oh yeah.
It's just so specific. And just because she needed to do something on her own, she needed something for herself, and how when Molly was in high school, like, no one was ever there, but she and her friends would go to this pottery painting store and fill it up, and she had a birthday party there, and she's like, that was you, that was the real you. And I think that communicates, one, it's obviously, it's a highlight of Glenn's performance, we love her monologues, but also I think it communicates that extra layer of, like, there is something there, like, she remembers her daughter before all of this, she knows who she is underneath all of that.
Right, exactly. So look at us complimenting Rodrigo in his direction. We're trying. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, one other thing that is, I think, a positive is this whole motif with the alarm system in Deb's house. You know, I think that is among the more effective elements, even though it does have to be just like bluntly underlined at one point, like why she has these alarms in her house, which is because Molly would often break in and steal things from her over the years. again, I just wish the film would actually trust us to, understand that without needing a full dialogue about it. But because like I got it pretty much right away with just how often the alarm system goes off. It's just that, but again, it's more telling, not showing.
And it's like he has to punctuate, like, they live in a really safe neighborhood, and it's like, this is because of her, this beeping and the alarm system. And even when he doesn't use the dialogue, they do this very annoying thing to me with the camera, which is just like focus, and you have this close-up of an object that like Deb clearly doesn't want around her daughter because she's afraid she's going to steal it. Her moving her wallet out of her purse to the side door of the car, or like having a close-up of the guitar next to her room door, and Deb moving it out. It's like, we know. We've heard multiple times that she has stolen from you, and that doesn't, it's obviously very serious, and you're worried about it. We know. We do not need multiple like shots of these objects that you're afraid of her taking. Yeah,
that's where it does get into very like clumsy cliche territory of I also want to talk about this other little subplot where first of all, forgot that the actress who plays Gail in A Star Is Born is here. A classic small role, big impact performance there. But she shows up here as Coach Miller, who bumps into Molly and Deb at the grocery store, and she tries to get Molly to do a talk at her school about drug addiction, which ultimately leads to a showcase scene for Mila where she kind of is pouring her heart out in front of these kids, especially when this little brat of a kid is just like, I would never let myself fall that far. And Molly's like, yeah, of course. Like, I've told myself that so many times that I'm not going to let myself get to the point of stealing or losing custody of my kids or stabbing needles into myself, and that she's woken up almost every morning for years thinking like this is going to be the day I set things straight. And then she just falls back into getting high again. And I have to say, it is this very affirming and real moment that I think is completely undercut by the syrupy score and also just the blandness of Rodrigo's direction here and the camera work. I feel like it would just feel so much more powerful if we had no music at all and just let her have this raw moment in front of these kids that just, it would feel more vulnerable if we just didn't have that score.
Yes.
Because it would put us in her mind of opening up in front of these kids and having that kind of a monologue. Anyway, it frustrates me to no end.
It is so frustrating, and it's some of her best acting that she really has in the movie and maybe elsewhere too. Like, I don't think she is a perfect fit for this role. I think it does make sense on paper, like we were talking about, but just I think she overdoes it and leans into the ideas around the physical part of the performance that I think can venture into stereotype a little bit, but I think she's quite good in this scene. It is just that score. The score is just laying it on thick, and it's already pretty intense. Like, we know that this is serious. Like, we don't need the score. And I will say though, Glenn in that scene, I do really like the moments where we get to see how she's reacting to Molly.
Standing in the back of the classroom.
Standing in the back. Yeah, I think that is really effective from her.
Yeah, and it leads to this fraught moment that Glenn, I think, plays quite beautifully and subtly, where Molly asks her mother to drive her to see this girl she knows who's 15 and like knows that she's an addict, and says she wants to meet with her for like 5 minutes and show that she's still doing well and all that. And Deb correctly, briefly assumes that this is just a stunt, and that she thinks deep down that maybe still, like, beyond that this, maybe this will be the time that Molly does choose sobriety, and that she knows for real this time what she needs to do. And granted, this is right after the chat at the school, so she might assume that Molly is just like in a helping mood and wants to help out other girls who needs help. But so she lets her go for 5 minutes, and then we see the doubt start to creep in
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about Glenn's performance in this scene that I find really affecting. Like, she is trying to hold back tears as she's realizing she might have just allowed her daughter to get hooked again.
Yeah.
When she knows better, she's told herself days on end that, like, she can't do this. And all that could feel very overwrought, this whole sequence, but there is an emotional truth that I think Glenn gets to that I found kind of moving. And like, you can see this, like, her simmering with all these different charged emotions, and how she goes to that flop house where she sees Molly with the girl who's dope sick, and she's attending to her. But there's like this ferocity that Glenn brings there, that's like all this rage just comes out as she's calling these guys monsters, and is just so disgusted by all this now that she's actually seeing it face to face and in this environment.
Yeah, I actually really like this moment in the movie because of Glenn's performance. I think that, like, some of it, I mean, it's like, again, it's like you're watching a Dare video. Like, you're checking a lot of those boxes, right? But I think her performance here has so many layers to it, because we see her sitting in that car. And if you're, paying attention to Rodrigo's direction earlier, like when they're at the grocery store with Gail from A Star Is Born, I can't call her Coach Miller. It's Gail from A Star Is Born.
It is, yes.
when they're
Just call her
there,
Gail.
and like when Molly confirms where this is going to be taking place, like where the neighborhood is, and you're like, okay, there might be ulterior motives to this. Like, it's a complex thing. But when Deb is sitting in the car, you get a sense of, what have I done? Like, I've been so careful. I've been so good with her. We've, like when she was on the phone with her ex earlier, she's like, I feel like this feels different this time. It's like she's fooled herself into thinking that something is different. And that's what hurts so much, watching her just in that car have the realization. And then when Eric, Molly's old boyfriend, like comes up to the car, what is going on with this Walking Dead makeup? Like, I just my God. Like, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
A lot of interesting makeup and hair choices in this movie. We'll just say that.
Fully, yeah. But I think, like, I love when she runs into that house and she's just like, all right, I've had it. Officially. I am going into this house and, like, nobody in here can scare me. I'm not afraid of any of you. Like, nothing can scare me after what I've been through and what I've experienced with Molly. And it is just, like, even though, in that moment we don't see Molly using, that doubt is still there, because, and I think that is actually a good directorial choice as well. Like, keeping us with Glenn, keeping us with Deb there. We don't follow Molly in until she goes in. I think that is really important. And thankfully, I think it's highlighting the right performance and the right part of the story there.
Yeah. Although I think from there, you kind of start to realize at a certain point that this is going to be a very standard and familiar story that we've seen dozens of times before.
Oh, yeah.
Even as recently as, like, Beautiful Boy from a few years prior, without doing all that much to either subvert that or to surprise the audience with a fresh take on an addiction story. But it does end up following a lot of those familiar beats ultimately, which is a shame because Glenn is certainly giving it her all. I think Mila is, we've kind of said, a bit inconsistent, but still clearly seems invested in this material.
Yeah.
But it's the whole thing of, like, Deb having hope and Molly seeming like she's on the right path. And then she lets her daughter off the leash a little bit and she relapses.
Yeah.
And
it's standard there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also the whole thing where Molly says, "Oh, my doctor just called, and we have to reschedule my appointment from Friday to Monday." But then going into how, like, oh, I can't be in this house any longer, and somehow kind of persuades Deb to let her go, essentially unsupervised, to her ex's house for a whole weekend, and trusts Molly not to use, which, to be fair, did happen in the real life story that this is based on. But I feel like the film doesn't really make it all that believable that Deb would just allow her to go off like this.
I totally agree. And this was something I had to look up whether this happened or not, because it felt so strange to me in the film, especially because earlier when her X comes by with the kids, there's this whole revelation after where she's like, yeah, he asked me for painkillers.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
like, wait, what? It doesn't make sense with what we know about the film, I think, version of Deb, and at least like what's going on in the story. And, you know, you can't fault anyone for doing that and for like making those kinds of decisions when they're dealing with a child with addiction. But at the same time, it has to make sense for the world of the film that you have created and the information that you shared with us. And here it just doesn't make sense.
That's exactly how I felt. And it really continues for me even when Molly comes back on Monday saying, hey, we got to go to the appointment. And then, you know, seems a bit manic, you could say. But she says that she needs Deb's urine because hers isn't clean. And that kind of face crack moment from Glenn, I think, is very real. Because I think she knew deep down that this would probably happen. And, like, she hasn't been answering any of her texts or calls all weekend long. And she calls herself a moron for just allowing this to happen. And, yeah, Molly does end up convincing her to pee in a cup because she notes how, like, you know, she just needs to pass this one test before she can get this shot. And she is manipulating her mother once again in this moment. Which, all this did happen in real life. But I just feel like this version of who Glenn is playing is she is like this hyper vigilant woman who at the very least would have probably done due diligence about like what it would mean if her daughter took this shot while having drugs in her system, especially in this long agonizing weekend where Molly was away and wasn't responding to her. Like, you would think that she would have maybe done a little bit of research, at least from the version we're presented here.
I agree. I almost feel like she would have driven over there to see what was going on herself. Like this version. Exactly. And then that's what's even crazier to me is then like her shock and surprise when like Molly does get the shot and then that happens to her. Like she has this extreme
has a reaction
effect, right? In reaction. And it's just like, oh my God, like how did this happen? It's this bad? It's like, yes.
Well, yes. Yeah. Sadly, the shot does indeed put Molly into these convulsions, and they have to go to the hospital, and Glenn gets into her Shirley MacLaine in terms of endearment realness here with yelling at the hospital workers. But it's an interesting choice to, from there, kind of cut off and then go to 4 months later. And Molly is now kind of on the mend and seems like she's on the right track finally. And they finally are putting this puzzle together that they've been working on in the garage, which is very heavy-handed, I would say, as a metaphor. Where you're also seeing how there's still a few pieces missing, which feels also very metaphorical. Like, you know, still a work in progress, and it's not perfect, but like at least we finished what's here, I guess. I don't know.
I know.
What do we think of this ending?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, I do love the give my daughter the shot realness happening at the hospital. But it's funny because it's like, of course, we knew that we had to have this jump in time, especially because it is a Rodrigo Garcia film and the way he opens it too with just this like dreamy, like, you know, her life was once this better thing, right? Or this is like, is this also, you know, a different version of her in the future? So we also had to use the number 4, obviously, right? Because that's the kind of movie that this is.
Exactly.
But the puzzle, oh my gosh, the puzzle, like when you first see it, you know it's coming back. Chekhov's puzzle. Yep, exactly. Great. And that final moment too, like not only like the missing pieces and finishing the puzzle, but when Molly just breaks it all apart. Yeah. That is to me like like the most heavy-handed part of this. It's like, all right, we're done like with this journey. Like this is another part of me, and but it had to end that way. And I don't know. I feel like it does. It makes you. It ends on a high note, I think, where, you know, she doesn't have her bleached and blue-green hair anymore. She's, you know, she looks a lot better, and it seems like she's on the mend, and the risk that they took paid off, right? But it is just that score and the puzzle. It's like, my God, it's too obvious. But this is a very obvious addiction drama. So what can we really expect?
Yeah. It matches in that way, I suppose.
It does.
Even if it's unintentional. But yes, it leads to the most important part of the movie, which is the end credits of Diane Warren's song.
Yes.
Somehow You Do. What do we think of Somehow You Do, sung by the great Reba McEntire?
So, honestly, Somehow You Do is, I think, one of her better songs of what I will call the forgotten era. So
this current era.
So this
is
current
sort of
era.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. When I say forgotten, I mean does not exist. Movies that do not exist.
Okay.
And this is, it's one that exists very much for us, but I think for the average person, like a Sundance to Vertical Entertainment release is typically forgotten, right? But I think this is, honestly, like, it is better than a lot of her other songs. I think it's a good fit for her because she loves a motivational poster. She really does. Like, that is one of the things, like, all of her song titles and the songs that she writes now, we are in a motivational poster era, right?
I need her to write a song called Hang In There, Baby.
We need that. Like, we have I'll Fight, I'm Standing With You, Applause, The Fire Inside, The Journey, Dear Me. Like, these all just, how could we forget? Stand Up For Something. Like, these are all just motivational poster songs. But Somehow You Do. Maybe it's the Reba of it all. A single mom who works 2 jobs. I mean, really.
She's a survivor.
That was Glenn. That was Deb here at one point.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it connects.
Loves her kids and never stops, even when they drive her crazy.
Yeah. She's a survivor. But this, I thought, was better than, like, The Journey from the 688. I thought it was better than Applause from Tell It Like a Woman, which I think is one of her worst songs. Definitely better than I'm Standing With You from Breakthrough, the Chrissy Metz one.
Yes.
Not as good as Dear Me from the documentary Diane Warren Relentless, but this is one of those where it's like, of course Diane Warren wrote a song for this movie.
Yes.
How did she not write one for Nyad?
That is a mystery to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also wild to me that this is the first time that a Glenn movie has a Diane Warren song.
Yeah.
Like, how did it take this long is my question.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Very
we
strange.
We need more.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. She can add on an end credit song to La Bola Negra.
Oh my God. I mean, I can't wait to see La Bola Negra, but the idea of Diane Warren, that's like it. Brief aside, it reminds me of that interview when someone asked Diane Warren which directors she wants to work with, and she said Christopher Nolan and Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm like, babe, you want your Oscar. That's okay.
Yes,
but let's get Glenn and Diane Oscars.
Absolutely. Preferably on the same night.
Yes. Worth celebrating.
I'll say from my perspective, this felt to me going into it again, because I hadn't heard this song in a while, felt like this is just one of those interchangeable songs she was nominated for in this forgotten era, as you said, and I couldn't quite remember the tune of it, but it has been stuck in my head ever since I watched it like 5 days ago. And
it is catchy.
The hook where she goes, some way, somehow you do. Like, that's, I don't know. She put a little extra little spice and magic into that, at least in that moment.
She did. I think,
somehow she did.
Somehow she did. Somehow they did, really. All of them.
Yeah.
Reba, Diane, Glenn.
What a combo. And these lyrics, I mean, I'm happy if it's helped people, but like, these lyrics are fully on the surface, fully on the nose. I think perhaps if we can be constructive, we could have dug a little deeper on these metaphors. And on that note, too, a lot of mixed metaphors here. All due respect to Diane. Any favorite lyrics in here? I do have the full song lyrics pulled up.
I do too. And I think my favorites. So I really just enjoy, again, we're talking about motivational posters, so like those usually have like a mountain or a road, right? And
perhaps an ocean.
perhaps an ocean. And I think that whole section, like when you think it's the end of the road, it's just because you don't know where the road's leading to. When you think that the mountain's too high and the ocean's too wide and you'll never get through, like that whole bit with the ocean, the mountains, and the roads.
That's the chorus. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and I like, and life's punched a hole in your soul.
Yes. She ate that.
She did. The rhyming there is too funny.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's a bit repetitive from verse 1 to verse 2 when we're talking about being at the end of your rope and then saying you're right on the brink. Like, I feel like that's just kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
But I will just say I love the bridge, especially the first line where it says, "'Cause it's those times when times get bad."
When I was listening to this song again, I laughed out loud the amount of times there, because I just, if I was editing this, we get the strike through, you get the comment, red pen on that line.
Yeah. And yeah, somehow you'll get through this. Don't know how, but somehow you will. Some
way, somehow you do. And then it ends with a little
Exactly. Little Reba. Yeah. But I'll say this to end on a positive note, to give her flowers. This may sound like just like, bottom of the barrel, kind of like, what you expect with this kind of thing. But it is the right choice to have these lyrics be in second person, because it is essentially from Deb's perspective here, singing to Molly, I guess. And for as somewhat generic as these lyrics are, it does have a sensibility that's like, God, this just seems impossible. And I don't have all the answers, but I know you'll get through it somehow. Like, that is the general sensibility of the dynamic here, I would say. So she gets it right on that level. I'll say that.
I like that. I think that's right. I think that's a good positive read. And it's a good way to close the film, really.
Yeah, I guess so. But I have one other observation that I wanted to save until now.
Okay.
Which is that when I finished this movie, it suddenly dawned on me who I think would have been cast as Deb if this movie were made perhaps in 2025 or 2026. And I'm curious if you can guess who I'm thinking of, because it's a very different energy from Glenn, but I felt something about it just makes sense.
Oh. I mean, my brain instantly went to Annette Bening.
Well, that would have been a great choice, but that's not who I'm thinking of.
Who did you think of? I need to know.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh my God. Of course. How did this not? I mean, right? I think if Rodrigo and Glenn did not have the relationship that they do, this would absolutely be Jamie Lee Curtis.
Don't you think?
I don't think she would even, I don't think she would have that wig, maybe. I think she would actually just, keep her short hair. But wow, I can see, she would ham it up. Think of that. Yes. Think of the scene when she, goes into that house and leaves the car. Oh, wow. This is going to stick with me all day.
Doctor. Yeah.
Yes. Whoa.
I know. That's, I had to save that for your live reaction.
I'm so glad that you did.
Yes. Yep. Somehow I did. All right. Any other observations on 4 Good Days before we get into the release?
I think that we've covered quite a bit here.
We
had to really wrap up with Diane.
We did. But let's talk about the release of 4 Good Days. So this premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival, just a few months before the whole world shut down because of the pandemic. It got mixed reviews. Some praise for Glenn, some praise for Mila, not universal praise. It was thought to be very standard, safe melodrama about its subject, and it was not acquired all year until eventually Vertical Entertainment purchased the distribution rights in March of 2021, and they released it in limited theaters on April 30th, 2021, followed by a VOD release on May 21st. So this was around the time where we were slowly but surely opening up the theaters again and it feeling safer to go out. It debuted in 298 theaters on April 30th, came in at number 11 that weekend, before expanding to about 500 the next weekend, which actually kind of surprised me that it went that wide. But in total, it grossed $843,000. Perhaps it would have made more if it came out later in the year, but yeah, pretty small. But despite the film not really having Oscar buzz for Rodrigo or Glenn or Mila, there was one person who was very present for this movie during award season, and that was, in fact, our dear friend Diane Warren. Mm-hmm. And her song, Somehow You Do, performed by Reba, was the big Oscar play, and it worked out for her. This was her 13th Oscar nomination. She would get her honorary Oscar later that year, so perhaps this was a turning point for her, getting this nomination. And it was also nominated at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards and the Society of Composers and Lyricists Awards, both industry organizations. So yeah, worked out for her again, even though she could not secure that win. Highly recommend watching her documentary, Diane Warren Relentless, which goes through this particular Oscar season with her.
Yeah, it's something, really.
Yes, it is. Any thoughts on the reception of 4 Good Days being kind of middling?
I think it makes sense, honestly. Like I said, I mean, I kind of said it in a bit of a joking or flippant way, but like it does feel like a Sundance to Vertical Entertainment release. And when things go to Vertical, that is a distributor where they just do not get awards buzz in a real way, or they struggle with distribution in theaters. It feels, like one of those movies that is kind of destined to be watched at home. This was one that I watched at home. Part of that was because of COVID, but also it was one that it felt right to watch on streaming when it came out. And that's, I think, how it works with a lot of their films. Unfortunately, if you don't catch them in the initial festival run, the song, I mean, it is just one of those things where, like, if Diane Warren has a song in a film, it does not matter if the film is underseen. It does not matter if it like barely has a theatrical release or barely makes any money. Like, somehow she does. Like, she will find a way. And this is one of those cases. And yeah, highly recommend watching the documentary because, one, it's just, I think, a fun and a cool way to see her relationship with her work, to see her process. I mean, the state of her office stresses me out, and I think everyone needs to experience that and the level of clutter that is there. I want to go in and help organize that. But I think it's really helpful to just kind of like see how she thinks about the awards race and like the Oscars themselves. Like, she genuinely believes that she's going to win. And it's interesting to see, I think, if you are into awards and Oscar history, just to kind of like see behind the curtain a little bit there.
She's also just a very eccentric woman who's like makes for such a great subject in general, even beyond any of that.
Yeah, and she has written so many. I mean, aside from her songs that we can obviously joke about in some of these movies that, in the late 2010s, 2020s, she has written so many hits, so many things that people have, I think, forgotten about. So definitely check it out. Yeah,
but I think back to the movie, I think just the quality just feels very standard and, yes, kind of like watch it at home in a way. And I also feel like a movie about addiction might not have been what a lot of the country was in the mood for at that point.
Yeah.
As well. So not exactly great escapism.
And we had just had Beautiful Boy, which you mentioned, and Ben is Back. Those came out in the same year. And then Hillbilly Elegy. It's like we had so many of these, and I just feel like by this point, like, that was a bit like people clearly didn't really want that. And where we were in the country was just people didn't want that. Yeah. But yes, for the song itself, I do just want to briefly go over this original song category, if we may, because outside of Somehow You Do, we had Be Alive from King Richard, Dos Oruguitas from Encanto, Down to Joy from Belfast, and the winner, No Time to Die from No Time to Die. Just curious, what song would you have voted for from this lineup, and why is it Down to Joy from Belfast? If there's one thing that we are going to do, it's beat a dead horse. Yes, indeed. We also love this year. Like, we have talked about this year on And the Runner-Up Is. Yes, we have. And you know how I feel about Belfast.
Mm-hmm.
I've coined it bell flop.
Yes.
You know, why not just, I think, like, give Diane Warren the win here. Like, let's just give it to her. Why not? These
this
songs,
is one of
like,
those years. Okay.
Billie Eilish, to, like, again, the shock from Diane Warren that she didn't beat Billie Eilish with a Bond song is just a wild part of that documentary. But Billie Eilish, you know, she has so many awards, and she goes on to win for a song in Barbie really soon after. Mm-hmm. So What Was I Made For? Another kind of Diane Warren-esque title, a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can give it to her here. Encanto, they picked the wrong song.
Yeah. Oopsie.
Which was the story of that year. But yeah, let's get Van Morrison out of there. We don't need him there.
Yes. I have to say, I do know Billie Eilish is divisive, but I still do really like that theme, for as sleepy as some people may find it. I think it has that moody, eerie Glenergy that I like to hear from this era of Bond, personally. And I do still like Be Alive. I think Dos Oruguitas is rather unmemorable and very obviously the wrong choice when talk about Bruno was right there, but they didn't get to it, and they didn't get to submit it in time before that song blew up. Down to Joy, I don't know her. And
forgettable.
Exactly. Yes. And Somehow You Do, oddly enough, like, it is a song where I do remember the melody of the chorus and Reba's vocals more so than a lot of Diane's recent nominations.
Yeah.
So in a way, I would say, why not just kind of give it to her? Mm-hmm. I don't mind.
Yeah. It's always just a why not, I think. Like, sometimes
exactly.
In this case, I feel like, I do like Be Alive. That would have been a fun one. But I do like the moody Bond themes too, and I just like moody music in general. So that one, it's fine. But it's just one of those opportunities where we could have given it to Diane, not to Van Morrison.
Exactly. Yes. I do also have a ranking of Diane's nominations, in case you're curious. I don't know if you have one of your own, but...
Of all of her nominations, or the most recent?
Yes.
Oh my God, please share. I do not have all of them, so please share.
Okay. I feel like that's a good way to end this episode.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Should
Very
I go
fitting.
from top to bottom or bottom to top?
Let's end on a high note. Let's go bottom to top.
Well, we have 17 songs for the record, but I do have my ranking. My number 17 is Applause from Tell It Like a Woman.
Fair.
I just can't with that.
Yeah.
Please. My number 16 is I'll Fight from RBG.
Yeah.
Which I find completely generic. Mm-hmm. Number 15, I have I'm Standing With You from Breakthrough. Yeah. Number 14, I have Dear Me from Diane Warren Relentless. Sorry to say. Just very, I don't know. Not for me.
Generic. Yeah.
Yes. 13, I do have Somehow You Do from 4 Good Days. Lucky number 13.
Yeah.
Yep. 12, I have The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, which is just so unlike any of the other songs from this era. It's just like this kind of up-tempo dance track. So, it's an interesting fit for her. But number 11, I have Grateful from Beyond the Lights. I do really like Beyond the Lights. And I have to represent my birthday twin, Rita Ora. So
always. My favorite fun fact about you.
Thank you. Now we're getting to some good stuff, I think, personally. Number 10, I have Music of My Heart from Music of the Heart.
Had to change it up a little,
Yes. A song from my childhood that I vividly remember. Number 9, I have Stand Up for Something, which I do like Andrew Day's vocals on that. So that's part of it. Number 8, I have EOC from The Life Ahead. Again, great vocals, beautiful vocals. Number 7, this may be a little high for some people, but I do have The Journey from the 688.
Oh my gosh.
I enjoy The Journey. What can I say? Unironically enjoy The Journey.
I need to listen to this again today.
I think you should listen to a full playlist of all of them, honestly, just to feel the full evolution. But number 6, I have Till It Happens to You from The Hunting Ground, which by all accounts should have been her win.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows this. Then we get to this, I think, unstoppable top 5, where I have number 5, How Do I Live from Con Air.
Yeah.
Would have been a wonderful win.
We're getting into some good stuff here. We really are. This is like a little bit of what I was talking about within her documentary.
Yeah. Like in the beginning, you're like, God damn. Like she had hit after hit. Yeah. Number 4, I have Because You Loved Me from Up Close and Personal. Amazing song. Celine. Number 3, I have Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now from Mannequin. Her first. A certified bop. Absolutely love it. And here we get to the top 2. I don't know if you remember what the other 2 are, but
There You'll Be and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Yeah, look at you. Diane Warren Scholar. Yes.
Had to
be. My number 2 is I Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon.
Oh, okay.
Which is always great, but a little overplayed ultimately for me.
Yeah.
And my number 1 is There You'll Be from Pearl Harbor, which I absolutely, for some reason, was obsessed with that song when I was younger. I love the vocals. I love that they were very obviously trying to replicate Celine Dion in Titanic with that ballad. I love just the way that song just soars and just it's just gives me every Diane Warren trope that I love.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Oh, what a way to end the episode. I think I'd go with I Don't Want to Miss a Thing is my number 1.
Yeah.
But
that's standard.
Yeah. But she has so many good ones. Just what an eclectic career.
Truly. Yes. Well, on that note, let's get to our last segment where we're going to rate Glenn's performance on a very specific scale. So would you say with her performance as Deb in 4 Good Days, she's ready for a close-up, low glow energy, close but no cigar, serving in silence, or Glennicent? You know all the definitions of those, so I don't need to explain.
I sure do. Yeah. Okay. I think this is peak Glennicent for me.
Okay.
Where, like, she, to me, is really good in a movie that isn't up to her talent. I think that that's like the best way really to think about this performance. I know, again, I've been very lucky with Dangerous Liaisons and Damages, but this is one of those where I still think she's great, but she's in the Glennicent territory.
Yes, Glennicent as well for me, pretty easily. I think she's giving it her all and making Deb into a more complex woman than she is on the page. I mean, there are times while watching where I don't know if she's like 100% the correct casting for this. Like, as you mentioned earlier, I think someone like Annette Bening might be even better for this kind of role, especially because I think she can maybe, swear a little more authentically than Glenn can at times. Like, she can really put her full Annette Bening into a lot of those things. But it is good work, even if the wig is also a little distracting at times, but that's okay. I got used to it by the end. So there you have it. Sophia, thank you so much for joining me as always. Always a treat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I always love podcasting with you. And, somehow we did. We've had, like you said at the beginning, more than 4 good days podcasting together. And this was one of them. So thank you again. This was really fun.
Excellent. Yeah. Where can people find more of you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Sophia Sim. You can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde, wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can find reviews, interviews, and more at Awards Watch.
Highly recommend following Sophia if you haven't already, but we all know that everyone listening is probably following her already, so redundant, but a necessary reminder if you haven't. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. You could find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter and Instagram, just Kevin Jacobsen, no underscore on Blue Sky. You can listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, And the Runner-Up Is, for coverage of every single Best Actress race. That's And the Runner-Up Is on all platforms. You can go to patreon.com/And the Runner-Up Is for early access to these episodes and bonus episodes of And the Runner-Up Is, such as my A Woman Rob series. And you'll also get a newsletter from me every Monday in your inbox. And to keep up with The World According to Glenn on social, follow The Glenn Pod. Rate, review, and follow on all platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.